alone in the studio.
Yeah, I can see.
So quiet.
I guess today you are really the only one in the campus, right?
Sorry,
I guess today you are really the only one in the campus.
I guess so. I guess so.
Okay, we're live. Welcome to the Hacking Machine Learning Style Transfer workshop. It's a part of the Digital Futures symposium, exhibition, conference, and PhD consortium. And this year's theme is Inclusive Futures. Welcome. We're glad you could join us. We've been working for a week now on machine learning style transfer and how to kind of use it in ways that it wasn't intended for. Then translating that into some kind of an architectural experience. And we have with us Juan Carlos and Henrik, both of whom have experience in this, this endeavor. And we're really grateful for them joining us today. We think that having their expertise has been very valuable to the workshop. We've also had Evan Saarinen and Wang Xin as a part of the workshop, and then also another TA along with Henrik, who is one of my students. Her name is Shannon. So we're glad that all of them have been able to help with this workshop, and I'm grateful for their help. It would have been a lot less interesting without them here. And we have with us some of our students, and I think we can just go ahead and dive in. If they have things to share, then I would love to see what they have. If not, we'll wait a little while to see what transpires, and if other people join, that will have work to share with us. The ultimate goal of this workshop is to present our work at Tongji University in an exhibition that's a part of the Digital Futures workshop and conference. So without further ado, Kei Wang or Shuhan Lui, do you have any work you'd like to share with us this morning?
Good morning. Maybe I can share my model first.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Let's see how to share.
I can barely hear you. Maybe you can either be a little closer to your mic or something. It'd be awesome if you. Maybe that's my own fault. Can you guys hear her well? No.
A bit laggy.
Okay.
Will it be better now?
That's a little bit better. A little bit. Yeah.
Let me try it. How about now?
Yeah, that's great.
Much better.
Is better?
Yeah.
This is making the audio so futuristic. It looks like you are joining from Mars. That is cool.
So sorry about that.
No problem.
I haven't made the video yet, but I have some photos and model that I can show you right now.
Awesome.
So I'll start with the style transfer photos. Can you see my screen and photos?
We can, yes, yes.
Okay. This is the photo that I shared the day before. And then so this is the photo that I get after using Photoshop. I made the environment, the background, I put a blue color there, and I want to make contrast with the flames and the highway. And this is another photo that I produced, but actually I have a question. Is that
maybe your screen is stuck. I only see your Windows Explorer. I don't see the photo you're zoomed in on right now.
Okay, let me see.
Do you have two monitors set up or something?
Is it better now?
Yeah, there we go.
Photos.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
so sorry.
perfect.
So I'll start with this photo. This is the photo that I think this is a perspective of a top perspective, and another photo is that is a perspective at a lower level. So I don't know exactly how to combine or make a scene that Spencer showed us before. That is I think it's a macro scene that you can see all the components and how they are arranged and composed in the scene. But I have two photos, and one is at a lower level and another is a top perspective. So I have some problems in generating the combined final output.
Well, and
anyway.
I have to tell you that because of the style transfer's inhibition for anything, including perspective, oftentimes what's seen in the image is physically impossible. And so then that's another opportunity for the designer to kind of insert their own will and translation of the thing. So what you're experiencing is not uncommon at all. It's actually a part of what we get from the style transfer process. And so hopefully that's comforting to you that you've run into a problem that's just part of it, and that we try and use it as an opportunity instead of letting it inhibit us as a stumbling block. I know that we had a very limited amount of time, and so I don't expect you to kind of be able to work through all those things right away immediately, but at least you've confronted the problem and you've been able to kind of grapple with it in some way. So good work. I think it's good that you're able to acknowledge that those challenges and discrepancies, and hopefully you're able to make the best of those. So it's good work. Keep going.
But I only realized the problem that I'm not able to solve this. But anyways, let me show my final work. This is the photo that I captured in my model, and I would like to. I think this can illustrate my. Anyway, maybe I'll show the. Can you see my model right now?
Yeah.
And this is the final model, but it's not very complicated, but because I try to use Grasshopper to make a more complicated model, as I have asked Hendrik. He suggests me to use a plugin in Grasshopper called Colubra, but I find I'm not able to use it. And I tried several times yesterday, but finally it doesn't get a success. So I use Sub-D to make all the things. Yes, I use Sub-D to generate this. I would like to generate a more like organic form of them. So Sub-D is the simplest and the most appropriate way that I used.
Yeah.
But I haven't generated the video yet, but I can show you in Enscape first. Sorry, it's loading.
No problem. Yeah, I mean, there's an easy way to generate a video from Enscape. Obviously, Enscape has its own animation export tools, but you can actually hit Windows key G on the keyboard, and inside of that menu, there's the ability to record your screen. And so I use that sometimes to get quick video output, where you can just kind of record the screen and then scale it a little bit so we don't see the window border or anything. We just kind of see the image. That's actually the video, the way that I output the video that I shared in the Discord channel. I did that exact thing. Windows key G on the keyboard. There's a record button in the top left corner, and then from there it will record your screen. You can take it into a video editing software quickly, expand it, cut the ends off so we don't see the mouse moving around or whatever it is. And then that way you can kind of get a fly through that's fairly smooth very quickly. So that's my method. If you have a 1080p display, then your video output is 1080p, which is more than adequate. And it seems to work fairly well. Obviously, Enscape has its own video export tools. And so if you want to have high quality video and you have a little bit more time, then that's great. But otherwise, the screen record seems to do the trick just fine.
I will try it later. But actually, I want to try Cinema 4D because I see that it can have very the texture, like metal texture in C4D is so fascinating that I want to give it a try, but I still don't have time yet.
Yeah.
So
well,
for
this workshop, we're like out of time. So whatever results you can come up with today are going to have to do. Unfortunately, I would love to see the Cinema 4D output. I think that would be fantastic.
Yes. So basically, I try to make a scene that is very that shows that the city is in a busy condition, but I think I didn't generate this kind of context. So it looks like a city without people right now. Exactly.
And under the time constraints, I think it's very difficult to start to incorporate people and get animation output. It's just not an easy task. So we understand that.
And I actually want to have some your suggestion on the texture of the ground and the facade of the buildings, because you can see right now they are of the same texture.
Mm-hmm.
I mean the same picture. I use the picture as my texture and put in Rhino.
Okay, so the texture you're using is from your style transfer?
No, okay, I'll show this. Can you show the pictures?
Yeah, I can see them.
Showing the
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I use the output pictures and I add another style here, so I get this the right hand side, the last two pictures, and I like the texture, the metal texture of the buildings. So I'm building the 3D model according to the texture of these two photos.
Let me ask you a question. Did you try the metal texture in Rhino?
Yes, but I don't think the result is good looking. I think maybe the photos I search on Pinterest is more suitable.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
So are these cubic volumes, are they using metal then?
They are also pictures.
Okay.
But I think metal-like feeling.
Like what?
They look like metal.
They do look like the metal. I think you did a good job with those. The metal textures in Rhino, from what I know, and I'm no expert, but the metal textures in Rhino require an environment map as well. If you place an environment map, then the metal has something to shine on it, some sort of an object to shine on it, and then it gives it that shine. Because without the environment map, it's just kind of not so great. But the environment map really helps.
So I have to put on the metal texture and add some lights on it, right?
Inside, so if you go back to Rhino real quick. Go to your materials. Let's see, and then there's metal. And then inside there's a lot of different kinds of metal. Yeah, there you go. Like use that top left one right there. Like I think that's chrome maybe. Not the top right, top left, top left. Yeah. Okay, now click on that object and select the texture. Yeah, go to texture. Yeah, there you go. And then inside of here, if you add, I think there's an environment map. Oh yeah, maybe not. So what I guess what I've done is I've used maybe the custom tool. If you go change it from metal to custom, and then here you can add an environment map. Right there, an environment.
Oh, I see. Environment
And then,
is one.
yeah, and you'll want to use, I think it's an HDRI image because it will be kind of a full panoramic view. And so whatever side of the material is seen from the camera will reflect that environment. And so what I would do if I were you is I would try to make this scene into an HDRI image. Export the panorama, or try and export a view, and then turn that into an HDRI image, and then use that image. And then what the material will be reflecting is kind of a view of this scene. You can try that, and the results should be better in Enscape than they are in Rhino, and they will be better as a rendered view than they are just in the image. So those are two things you can try. They may not be successful, but those are two things you can try. Henrik, I'm sure you have something you can suggest.
Actually, no, I'm just searching about the technique of the HDRI because I didn't think of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
I'm thinking maybe if she can find a similar style she's trying to achieve as the HDRI image, maybe it can also help in the showing the complexity too. Because I think one of the thing from her original image, I mean the style transfer image, is that the background has a lot of context into it. So maybe even she didn't model all the context, maybe the reflection can help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you mean the right top corner one?
I mean the one in the below it, the one below. Yes.
Actually, there are a lot of things in the background that I kind of I can't imagine what they are, and I just add the installation of that of this thing. I add it by it doesn't show in the picture, but I add it according to my own imagination.
Actually, I'm wondering, can we use a similar technique that Spencer showed in the tutorial? Like actually using the existing model and trying to multiply a little bit as a background. I'm not quite sure would it make the things more confusing, but maybe can have just a quick try.
Let me interrupt real quick.
Yeah.
So I just did a quick test. Let me share my screen as well. Screen number, let's see here. I'm just going to rearrange my screens here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, screen number 1. Screen number 2. Okay, can you see my screen? So I've got so I've got this rendering real quick here. This is using polished aluminum, and we're getting a direct reflection without even using an environment map. This is just polished aluminum by itself. So I can show you my settings here. The screen resolution on this thing is a little bit challenging. So here it is. This is polished aluminum, which I can find here. If I go import material from material library, and then I go to metal, and then I go polished, and I go polished aluminum, I get that material there, and I can change it. See, when I see it in the window, I'm not really seeing that reflection like I want. I see it a little bit, but not like I want. This is actually just a regular rendered view. But then when I render the image, that's when I see the results that I'm hoping for.
I see. So maybe it's just a matter of rendering.
Yeah, and I think you'll get those results in Enscape as well. I mean, for just as a matter of saving time, maybe we won't do that on screen, but I'll just do that offline here real quick and just test it in Enscape. But hopefully that's helpful. And then you can choose how you can choose the properties of that material. You can make them more or less. What's the word here? More or less polished. And by decreasing that polish, you get less reflectivity, more opacity. Did we lose her? Are you still there? Did she fall off?
I think she's still
I followed up.
Oh, here you are. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just testing this in Enscape now, and I'm finding that it does have the reflectivity, and it's a little bit more brushed, like not so mirror-like in Enscape. So that should help you, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Now, if you go back to your images, there was something that I wanted to see there. You have in your model these kind of just simple monolithic towers, but I think that the forms were a little bit more complicated than that. And I think that might help you, especially if you're trying to do this reflectivity, because having different refractions and different angles of reflection, I think will be helpful to you. The other thing I'll say is that if everything in your scene is homogeneous, one texture, then all the reflections are going to reflect back that same color. And so you won't end up with a lot of difference or variation in what you're getting. And so I would suggest that you try to add more variation to your materiality. You did mention this earlier, that there's this homogeneity between the background and the foreground. There's something strong about that, but then also if you're trying to incorporate this reflectivity, then it's not going to be successful at showing that. So you want to try and incorporate a third material. You'll need your background material, your reflectivity material, and then you'll want some third material, which I think you can probably find from your style transfer, just like you have already. You kind of use something from the style transfer. If you go back to your style transfer images, you'll find something in there that will be useful to you in terms of a third kind of language. You may even think about trying to just use one of these images altogether outright as a third texture. It will add a little bit more busyness, which is kind of what you're interested in going for anyways. If you just use this last image as a texture and strategically place buildings with this texture on it, then when you have those reflective buildings, those will kind of reflect back this busy building texture.
Okay, I will try.
Yep. Hopefully that's helpful. Happy with your results. I think you've come quite far. I think it's quite nice to see what you've put together. Juan Carlos, do you have any thoughts? I've kind of dominated here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, rather than the technicalities, I think the result from the style transfer is quite good. And yeah, I think really changing the texture and the materiality will help a lot with reflections and to maybe perhaps go closer to the original image of the style transfer. So it's just about that. But the process, I think it's really interesting. And yeah, more or less this.
I just think of one thing that maybe she can also try quickly, which is actually from this image, we cannot really see a well-defined ground plane. So I'm wondering what if she actually take away the ground plane and then just mirror the model. So she's like having something like this. So maybe it will match the how to say, the idea that I can see from the style transfer image. So it's more focusing on the verticality and the interlocking bridges. Do you understand what I mean?
Do you mean I put a mirror? I apply a mirror texture, or I actually mirror all the buildings?
Yeah. I think just mirror the massing and just have a try. Because from the style transfer image, we can see a very strong verticality character. But here it is more like how to say, more like Kowloon Wall City. It's more horizontal. So maybe this is one part that make it closer to your concept from the image. I'm not quite sure about this. This is what I'm thinking when I look at the image. Yeah.
I try.
There's a lot of ways you can do that. This is good. I think there's a lot of ways you can do this. One way is just to select all the buildings themselves and then just scale in the Z direction. That will accomplish, I think, most of what Henrik is trying to do. And of course, remove the ground plane. The other thing you could do is give the ground plane like a 20% transparency. So it's almost non-existent, and do that same thing, you know, have the buildings be tall, but have the ground be kind of slightly in there. Then the other way would be just the literal mirroring, like Henrik is saying. So all those things, all those techniques could help. I think it's a good suggestion, Henrik. I think that it's a little bit, it could be problematic to remove the ground plane entirely, especially if you don't mitigate the environment around it. You try and incorporate the whole environment. And then also with, one of the limitations of Enscape is it wants to kind of rationalize the view that it's seeing. And it's looking for a ground plane, it's looking for a place to kind of, and so you might have some issues there. But I think you should try those. Those are great suggestions that Henrik is giving. Try those things and see what happens. Really happy with the results. I think that this will be a wonderful addition to the exhibition. Get your results in as soon as you can. Let us know when they're in so that we make sure to include them if possible based on the time. I'm not exactly sure about the timing and when exactly, you know, what kind of buffer we have after this meeting is finished. I imagine it's pretty tight. We're going to have to work pretty hard to make sure the timeline works to get everything into the exhibition. And to add to the complexity, I'm traveling tomorrow, so it's not like I have the ability to to kind of play around with this much longer. But yeah, please hurry and get your results in as fast as you can, and we look forward to seeing what you finally come up with. Thanks for being a part of the workshop. Really appreciate it. Okay, who would like to share their work next? If no one else wants to go, I actually have received work from several students, and I can share their work if we're waiting. But Xinyi Zhang, I have your work. You would like to share your work? Would you like to share with us your process a little bit?
Oh, yes, I am here, and I will share my screen now.
Great.
Can you see my screen right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this is actually what I get finally, and that is what I put in the folder. So I will explain how do I get that. So after the last class, I feel like the way I was doing that was not that fruitful. So I just changed like all my image and do that again. And this is the process of how I doing the style transfer on the website. So after all these trials, I picked this one as my favorite. I wasn't that much into Archigram, but I feel like this is really fruitful because you know the image on the small image on the left is like yeah, it's a really I think it's a famous Archigram image, and when I merge it with the yellow one, the yellow image, the output, like the big image in the right is quite fruitful, I think. And it's reminded me of something like a war on another planet, and there are some strange machines or some creatures or something. So I just use this one. No, I just use this one as my you know the basic thing, and I will add something on that. So I feel like this photo is really suitable to doing the style transfer. So I just use that as another one in the style. So when I mix these two pictures, I get the one on the left. And I was doing that because I think this thing is like a little bit shallow and it's not like the whole image. So I want to add some more elements in that. So,
right.
What I choose from this image is that the bottom part is like a sea. So I want to show is that it's like another planet, but it's all on the water. It's all like on a sea, and all those things are floating. So I just use those two to merge the final output. And I feel like this one, the background for this is a little bit complicated and not that easy to mimic in Rhino. So I want to change that background. And because I was imagining it on another planet, so what I am thinking is like I want to use another something big, something round as a background, like another planet to see from this planet. So what I choose is this one, and I just mix them together, and this is my final output. So next step, I was just put all of them into Rhino. And I don't have that time to do all the textures things, so I just you know just didn't put some texture on that. And yeah, so actually the output is really it's like in a column way, but I just make this thing in the horizontal layout because I think I want to make it, you know, a larger image or something. So I actually did a little bit rendering, but it doesn't look like that beautiful, so I didn't use it. And this is the composite of these two. And so this is how I get this. It's like I think yesterday when you guys make comments on another student's work, you say it looks like a movie scene. And I think that is actually what I want to do. It's like I have a big planet on another side, and it looks like it's a huge background, and there is also some things in front of that. And in my mind, that big round planet is round. It's self. What's that say? Self-lighting. What's that word? I forgot. So it's just it's really bright. So all the light are from the back, from this big round planet, and something going on in front of that. So this is top view, and yeah, and these are some views of the Rhino files. I just expand some of the views to the right and to the left, and add something like this. It's like some sea plants and some, yeah. So this is what this is what is under the water. It's like I didn't doing all these chaotic things by Grasshopper. I just do that by hand because I think it's a little bit complicated to use Grasshopper. So yeah, and here are some details for this Rhino files. For the one on the left are like flying craft for aliens.
I love the question mark. I love that. How you're saying, is it? Who knows what it is? I like that.
Who knows? Yeah. And the image on the right are some mountains underwater. Yeah. So, and I think in my mind, in my deep heart, there is always a desire to make something like out of no reason and some like create some strange creatures like this. So I just did that like to mimic the image I do as the output. So this is, yeah, the machines on the water. Oh, I use the background picture in the Rhino to do the background because I doesn't have that much time to do the flying things. So I just use that one. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Very nice. I think that for me, the most amazing image is the very first one where you're comparing the two. Yeah, that one there is, I think you did a good job with that. Really nice.
Yeah, but it doesn't have a texture. I think it will be better if I have a texture.
The thing is that the ambiguity that's left with just this Rhino gray render is fine in this case, in this context, because there's so much other information happening. You know, it's not like we just have a gray box that you can easily tell is straight from Rhino, but there's like a lot of other elements that are taking place, and to me it seems to work pretty well actually. When you start to texture, as you saw from my experience, you know, right when you start to texture, then our minds want to tear it apart as you know, in terms of understanding it as a real object or a false object. And this Rhino gray doesn't give our minds the opportunity to tear it apart and dissect it as if it's a real or not real object. So yeah, you've kind of avoided a pitfall that happens when you start to texture. So in that way, it's been successful.
Yes, and another way, and another reason that I didn't do a texture, because I see that some colors on the object, they're not the same. It's like it's changing, and I didn't see it clearly. Like, how can I texture the things to make it to mimic this image? Yeah.
One question I have is the top of that large sphere, the alien spaceship, looks like it has some texture on it. Is that just transparency, or what is that?
Oh,
because the top has it, but the bottom doesn't.
Yeah, it should be transparency, but I didn't do that. It's empty. It's vacant. It's like it should be like something like glass.
We're just seeing the background. We're just seeing the background.
Yes, it's nothing there. It's just I cut the sphere into half part, and I just cut out the upper part, so it's all translates there.
You might try just removing the ball altogether, because the ball is quite implied with the rest of the geometry, and the background texture kind of gets hijacked by the object, and it starts to feel like it is the object, that background there. You might just try turning off the ball and see how that background texture fills in what you're looking for.
Sorry, could you do that again? I didn't get it.
I think that the top of that ball is very successful, and it feels like the background texture is almost, from my mind's perspective, it's almost removed from the background and reappropriated, or it becomes a part of the ball geometry.
Yeah. Get it.
So you might try that just for one final revision, possibly, because the top of the ball looks really nice. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Sure.
The other thing I'll say is that one of the beautiful things about your image on the left is the strong contrast. You have the bright moon, and then you have these very deep blacks, and that's maybe something you're missing a little bit in your final Rhino model. And if you start to play with the light and shadow a little more, you might be able to get a little bit more of those deep contrasts out of the model.
Yes.
Now, because you're approaching this from kind of the movie set mentality, which is great, I think that, see, there was an issue with the previous example that had it feeling like a movie set, is that it felt like a movie set, but yours doesn't feel like a movie set. It feels like a full environment. And so you were able to kind of apply the strategy appropriately, where a movie set never feels like just a movie set. It always feels like the environment. The problem is when the movie set feels like the movie set, which is what was happening in that other example. In your example, it feels like a true environment. Now, one of my students, Latika, she had this 2D Photoshop file, and she had every object isolated, and she was kind of moving them around to show us the different objects. And after the lecture, or after the workshop, I spent some time with her in After Effects, and I was just telling her that she could animate that 2D Photoshop file in After Effects quite simply, and we start to get the same kind of experience where it doesn't feel like a 2D image anymore, but just by the fact of like changing scale and changing location of different objects, she starts to get a full experience, like a full environmental experience, even if it is just a stationary view of the same scene. And I think that you have that same opportunity because you have 3D model, you have modeled many of the components. You could easily isolate these components, bring them as independent objects into After Effects, and then you can start to compose an animation rather quickly, I believe, just using the 2D extracted JPEGs of these various components against this backdrop. And I'm not saying you have time for that now, because we're really running short on time, but you've built up this scene that's now kind of ready to animate, actually, in a very cinematographic way.
Yeah. Yes.
Actually, I'm also thinking one thing, because you mentioned that the gradient color doesn't make too much sense on the modeling. But actually, when I'm looking at your image, it looks like every object can move. So maybe those gradient can be used as a notation of suggesting some movement. So maybe those are some indicator if you want to animate them or show they are moving. Maybe those gradient are like the traces of it, instead of a really texture of an object.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
This is actually how I saw it at the beginning. Yeah, yeah, but I
Because it's
really
moving,
like it.
so it's not clear.
No, I can imagine the sphere is actually rotating towards
Oh,
like that. Yeah, that's how I read those gradient.
yeah.
I really like that. Even you said some parts are not are only purely creative, like the sea plants, but I think it works really well with the whole scenes, because everything is like having the legs swimming around the space. I really like that.
Okay, any final comments?
Yeah, I want to follow up the comment about the movie set, because for me it's very important that this needs to be clarified. So what we were commenting yesterday is that how the space has been thought and modeled was just into one direction. Yeah. So when we speak about a movie set, is that you have the camera and you arrange everything just to have that view. But as soon as you move, then you cannot have any other views. That's the difference I find with your work, that I find really, really a good one. Because in your case, even if can be defined as a movie set, my perception is that you have a very good 360 degrees understanding. So I can see that you can move around and the objects will be always composing an interesting scene. Yeah. So this is actually the difference between one monodirectional view, it's just like one shot, or what is happening here, that I find that I can have many directions where I can shot that. And this is important because when you are moving to an animation, you cannot just do it into one axis, right? And just not into one direction. So you need to navigate around, and this is what is making the difference. So I think this is the value of your proposal, first of all. And then the other thing that I appreciate is the narrative or the storytelling, because it's very aware. So how you follow step by step, how you explore the style transfer, how you get to manage it, how you combine it according to your necessities, and how then your imagination, so the idea to translate this into something, another planet, under the water, the sea plants. I mean, all these kind of things then are very helpful because they are kind of guiding you in a process that sometimes could end into an excess of abstraction, right? So even if there is not, I mean, of course it's more like a video game, but I think this is very helpful because then this is how then the things are happening, yeah? And so if everything is synthesized in the first image, I think it's really a wonderful one because I can see how the style transfer works to generate, to push your imagination into creating something, how the modeling was controlled, even if you are facing a problem of time, and this is quite clear, but we are so aware about that. But then you were able anyway to manage that. So you are again producing a kind of hybrid in which you have something that is just image coming from the style transfer, is a sort of collage, but together with a 3D modeling that was inspired by the style transfer at the end. What I appreciate is that you are able to get a very good result with the resources you have. And this is a great achievement from my point of view, right? I'm sure that if you have one more week, then all this kind of the sky and the complexity of these flying things will become a 3D model. And in that time, you will be able again to translate and to deliver. You know, it is what I appreciate more and what is often missing from our students is this capacity of delivering, you know? I need to deliver, so I need to be completely aware about what I have, what I did, what can I do, and how can I put things together in order to obtain the best result in this precise moment. And it's not like I will need 1 month more or the same result of 3 days ago. Because actually, architecture is this. It's an endless process, you know? So if you have 5 months, you can work 5 months. If you have 5 years, you can work 5 years, because creativity is endless, right? So this capacity of delivering is a very wonderful talent, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, she started the process over in the middle of the week, right?
Yeah.
Juan Carlos, like, that's just amazing.
It's amazing. It's amazing because
Yeah.
it's,
It's like actually it's last night.
Yeah, and it's a good demonstration that then it's not matter of time, but it's matter of maturity to do what you can do with what you have, right? I love cooking, and for me it's the same. So maybe I have just few things, but with that few things I can do a lot, right? It's something very similar. Is to have a self-evaluation of what we can do and to obtain the best into that limitations. I think this is a very, very important thing in design.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, to that end, maybe instead of trying to deal with the contrast in the model, you might just do a quick Photoshop touch up of your model image to have a little bit more contrast. Whiten the moon a little more, darken the shadows a little more, and I think that you'll have a little bit more kind of coherence there.
Yes, actually, I was doing the moon like I was also trying to make the moon a little bit lighter, but what I want to do is actually to show its texture like it's actually like a moon, not a big round bright the ball, because I want to make it texture show. It's like something is different from the output, but that is something what I want. Yeah, but actually it did make the contrast not that good to see, but maybe I will make the background just brighter than the object.
I think it's a balance. You have to weigh that balance, because obviously you have competing objectives with your composition, so you have to weigh that balance. But I just feel like that anytime you can get a full range of contrast in an image, you're able to have a much stronger composition.
Oh yeah, yes.
Xinyi Zheng, I just want to say that you are what I was hoping for in the output and in the kind of ingenuity and everything. So even if we get no other good results from this workshop, which we already have gotten other wonderful results, it was worth it just to see this work. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for your comments too. So I will just start the motion.
Thank you very much. Was really, I really appreciate your your work.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, how about what do we have here? Who hasn't gone yet? Would anyone else like to share their work? How about Shuhan Liu? Can you share with us your work, your updates? If it's okay, I'm gonna share your work. If you don't want, if you're not wanting to have a dialogue, I'm gonna at least share your work with everyone so they can see. Is that all right? see, he's unmuted here. Shuhan Liu. Or how about Du Ming Shu?
Okay, I will show my screen now.
Great.
Thank you.
Can you see that?
Yep.
I did it last night, and I just have the model, but I haven't rendered it. It didn't have any texture. Maybe later I will do it. And it's like the individual unit building, and I put it together. And this is the final image that I want. Maybe put it back. You can see
okay.
It's like that. And I built it, maybe it's in the front. You can see it's like a bridge and combined at here. And it's also like two, maybe it's two towers, and maybe it's in the sky, and this part of building under the level, sea level. And I also use these balls. It's like the where the Eskimo live in. And it's also have this building shape. It's like a...
I thought those were only clouds.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah.
And these are clouds, I think.
Can you zoom in maybe in that clouds, because it looks quite interesting.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Wow.
And you have also a view from the bottom, right? I see there's some
underneath.
I just,
yeah.
Yes, underneath. I just put a sea level here, and these are underneath maybe. And I also think these buildings may be floating on the sea. This one. My modeling skill is not very good, so.
Good enough. Okay, so how are you going to wrap this up? Because you've got some really nice work here. It seems to be pretty well organized in terms of a scene. What's your plan to wrap this up?
I think it's before I said it's like in the North Pole or in Harbin. It's like a freezing atmosphere or conditions. The cities may be living in the sky or underneath the sea, and people may be living in there.
So your final output is going to be just one image or several images, or what are you hoping to kind of pull together for the exhibition?
Maybe several images from different
perspectives,
and also,
different viewpoints.
yes, perspectives. I want to put it in the Twinmotion and render it and give them the textures. Can you see this Photoshop?
Not yet.
I'm not yet.
You might have shared the single program. You might have just shared Rhino. You might stop sharing your screen and share your screen again and make sure you share screen 1.
Oh, okay. Please wait for a moment.
Yep.
Maybe it's the final version, and I will keep on do that later. It's the final imaging that I want, and this is my modeling. But I have a problems is that these back buildings I can't model it because it's I think it's a little bit difficult for me to do that. So I just model the front architecture, and I don't build this one.
I think that's okay. I don't think that you have to do a direct one-to-one translation. It's more about you taking what you find to be useful or interesting and trying to use that. And so if there's something in the original image that isn't quite working, that's completely understandable. And I think that the important thing is that you're able to get final compelling results, and missing one element isn't going to make a big difference in terms of whether it's a compelling imagery or not.
I think the most important thing is that I don't have a main building, maybe in the front. And it's also see like.
Well, let's see here. So just to understand more, the output that you're hoping, this right here, what we're seeing is going to be what the output is, exactly as it is now?
Yes.
Okay. A couple of things. One is I would get rid of the DeepArt.io logo, either by scaling or by kind of content-aware fill, whatever you need to do to try and get rid of that DeepArt.io. It's just distracting. And then the other thing is I would probably remove the white border, because the white border also is a little confusing in terms of what the composition is, because some places the thing goes beyond the white border and some places it doesn't. Maybe that's your intention, but I think that it's maybe distracting in this case. Sometimes having the object move beyond the border shows kind of three-dimensionality, and maybe that's your intention. But in this case, I don't feel like it's working for you. I feel like it's a little bit distracting. And the other thing I want to say is that this water level line doesn't seem to be working for you either. It's a little bit also distracting. And the reason why is because we see the water level line, but there's no difference in terms of the way we view the objects below the water than how we view them above the water. If you want to keep that water level line, then I suggest you add some kind of a mask to give some greater opacity to the objects below the water level line. But I honestly feel like that the things below the water level line aren't really helping you in terms of this composition per se. I think that the things above the water level line are of enough interest that we don't really need to see the things below the water level line. Also, the things that are in the clouds are quite compelling. And I think that if you will just choose one or two elements within that city in the clouds to change the color, or to add a texture, give some contrast between the cloud, a little bit of contrast between the clouds and the objects, then we'll be able to see them more clearly, and more focus can be given on those. And they might even possibly be able to take this central focus that you're looking for. There's a chance of that being the case. But if you're going to do that, then what's happening under the water becomes competing against what's happening in the sky. So if it were me, I think I would probably scale the image so that I'm not seeing the things below the water level, and try and put more of a focus on the things in the sky. And that will be by scaling the image up more.
Okay. I understand.
I think it was to make some experiments with views. So again, I was really impressed about the work you did from the cloud. So I guess the comment from Spencer is to give the correct value to that, because in this moment, we cannot even see it, right? So my point is, what about if you think that you are like in one of the roofs of this building and you are looking to the clouds? What's the view that you can get from there? Or even from underwater and looking to the sky. I don't know, maybe you can try very quick in your Rhino model, and maybe something really interesting is coming out. Because this is related to that 3-dimensionality that we are looking for, right? So I understand this is the beginning image, so everything has been modeled according to that. But then, because of the quality of your modeling, then you can see that you have even other points of view that perhaps sometimes could be even more interesting than the initial one, right? So I think really it worth to spend a few minutes and to take a look into how this is going to be, because perhaps there's something that could be really, really good. I have to say, as a general comment in your work, that at the beginning it seems not to be that complex, but I'm quite surprised and very optimistic, and I think you did a good work, because even from that apparent simplicity, you get into a complexity that I find quite interesting. So this has been really good from your side, you know?
Yes, thank you.
An example of the clouds is one of those. But I even if I like this idea that you are like pushing your audience to be very curious and to discover things, but at the end of the day, anyway, you need to deliberate. So you need to give us that, you know. And I'm still like curious to see what's going there. I haven't seen, and I quite like how you are making me so curious.
I think I should focus on the architecture in the sky, and maybe give up this part of this underneath the sea level, I think.
Yeah, but what I'm saying also is to force your points of views, because now it's just like a facade, you know. It's very, let me say, conventional, but this is not able to give to deliver the quality of the complexity, because you're really working in 360 degrees, right? So I will not just focus into this kind of view. I will just invert it and look to the sky, right? And see what is happening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your advice.
Yeah, I think Juan Carlos has a great idea. Like, if you imagine that you're on one of these lower buildings in the front, on top of one of the lower buildings in the front, and you have a view towards the sky, you'll probably be able to see some of these towers poking up as you're looking towards the clouds. And so you'll get kind of a sense of the whole space without seeing the whole space. And it will, like he was hoping, give this urge of curiosity to know more about the scene.
If sorry, Domenche, if I'm not asking that much, can you do it now? Since I think it's very fast, right, in your 3D model. Just can you set up a view like that?
Wait a minute. I will show my Rhino.
I mean, I guess we have time, right, Spencer? So
yeah, we're good.
So what should I do now?
imagine that you're walking in one of these roofs. Put yourself inside.
So here's what you can do. Click on one of those roofs there. Just click on one. Click on one of the roofs. One that's maybe a little bit closer to the towers. Like by that, next to that big, the sphere in the back, right there. Yeah. Oh yeah, there. That was a good. Okay, wait. So click on one of those by this. Oh. Yeah, you're getting there. Okay. My suggestion was if you click on an object and type zoom selected, it takes you to that object, and then you can just rotate your view up to look at the sky from that object. Yeah, type ZS, zoom selected. ZS on the keyboard.
ZS.
Z is in Z or zebra. ZS. Yep, spacebar. Or enter.
Oh, it's here.
And then now you can just rotate your camera up to see the sky from that point of view.
I think maybe it can be set. The camera can be set to a wider angle.
Ah, that's a good point too.
Yeah.
Keep going.
To the right-hand side, if you go to the right-hand side, can you see there is a number 50 on the right-hand side toolbar? Sorry. Sorry, maybe you can go to the setting on the right-hand side. Can you see there is a camera focus, and it's called 50.0 on the right-hand side of the screen, just below the perspective. Yes, this one. For example, if you type 22 or something, it might help you to find a better angle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just now there is a good trying to look up to the cloud.
Oh.
I just put 2 images on the chat. So you may take a look on the first one. It is just for reference that how we can find the image looking up.
This one.
But already from these views, you can see, right?
The spaceship.
Yes.
Oh, beautiful, right there. Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Really nice. I think one thing you might try is using just using a regular sky as an environment, so that we get the full environment. Obviously, it's nice to have the actual colors of the sky from the image, but as a quick way to kind of, because right now we have this gray background and it's a little bit problematic for the composition. But if you just put an environment quickly, then you get and use this view. This view's wonderful. Then we have kind of a clear understanding of that city in the clouds.
Yes, it should have a real sky in the background, I think. But I haven't worked that, so maybe later I will do that in Photoshop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's an easy way to do it with an environment map, or even just a gradient in your background could work quite nicely. If you go back to if you go to the display properties,
Display.
At the very right hand side of your screen. Oh, don't change that view. That view is beautiful.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Display properties. Yep.
Yeah,
One
right.
over one. Right there. Yep. And then you see there, it says color. You can change the pull down menu just above it. Yep, right there.
The one
right
above.
Right above that color. Close that menu. Close the color menu. And then right above the color is a pull down menu.
Pull down.
Right there.
Yes.
Yep. Gradient.
Yes, image. Oh, sorry, gradient. The one.
Which one should I?
I would do four color gradient.
Okay, so the fifth one. Sorry.
Oh.
And then you can choose a gradient, and that will at least give you. That's like a really quick workaround. Obviously, there's more specific ways, but sometimes the most simple is the best. So.
Oh. I choose this one.
Mm-hmm.
Is it better now?
I think it needs to be a little darker. And what you have is the color gradient is from the top to the bottom. And so with the 4-color gradient, right now you have a 2-color gradient. With the 4-color gradient, it's from each corner.
Oh.
And then we have a nicer, it's a little bit nicer.
Okay.
And your image, it looks like the dark blue is coming from the top right. And so if you just change that, I think that will actually be quite nice.
Dark.
Top left, top right, not top left.
Oh, top right. Okay. It's a little bit bright here.
You need some white in there or some really light colors in there as well. I would suggest the top left is a kind of a lighter or a whiter color. There we go. Oh, I like the contrast is good. It's good to have several colors kind of playing together.
Yeah.
I would change that gray back. I would bring the gray back, and if anything, maybe make it lighter in the bottom right position, maybe.
The bottom right, a little lighter.
I would say almost white. Yeah.
Almost white.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, you can play with that more at your own convenience.
Okay.
You can also input just a piece of geometry that's circular or panoramic that has a gradient on it or a texture background. You can also use the environment tool. You just type in environment and it will bring up this environment, and you can select an environment as a backdrop. I think the abstraction is nice for this one, so that we're not forced to kind of be confronted with the photoreal and reconcile that with this rendered perspective view.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is great. Interesting work.
Thank you.
If anything, you're going to want to try and extend the water plane, because from this view, we're not seeing it. Either that or be more sky oriented, so we're not seeing the ground plane at all.
Yeah, maybe we can see the ground. So
if you choose a lower vantage point, then we're not seeing the then it's not like we're expecting to see the ground anyway. Yeah, like that. There we go.
Is this better? Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's better for sure. And in this case, you'll want to extend the water so that we're seeing that kind of go out to the horizon a little more. But yeah, this is the kind of the views that I'm thinking about.
Okay.
Okay. Any final comments before we move on to our final few participants?
Yes, I have one more thing, which is if you have time, maybe you can also take a look on the second image, which is more on from a bird view towards the down. So we can at least have an image to see the overall model. And then you can place one of your spaceship at at one of the corner, which is like you're looking from the spaceship. So maybe it can make the most use of your model, because it was quite delicate actually.
That would go to your issue of not having a foreground element either as well. So that's great. Great suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe 2 angle will be better.
Okay, thank you.
Daman Shu, thank you so much for sharing your work and your participation this week. It's been wonderful.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so let's see here. Lu Shu Han. Shuhan Lu. Would you like to share your work? I'm gonna in the chat. I just asked if it's okay, and so we're gonna go ahead and share what they've got real quick. Juan Carlos, and let me try one more time. Sorry about that. How's that? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. So here is, oops, having some glitches here. Man, open with. I guess I can't zoom in. Anytime I zoom in, oh, there we go. So here we have his initial imagery and results. And from that, it looks like he's gone there, which we saw this work the other day. Here we see kind of, here we see the output. And we'll keep going here. There's the final results he's achieved. Just going back through here, these drawings. 1, 2, 3, 4. Any comments here on this work? I think we spent a lot of time on this work yesterday and not a lot has changed. So I don't expect there to be a lot of comments, but if you have any, please chime in here.
Yeah, it looks quite similar to yesterday, but perhaps this main object at the center seems to be now better than yesterday. This is the only change that I can feel, but not sure about it.
Yeah. He does have a few more kind of photoshopped humanoid objects or robotic objects that help to fill the scene a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Overall, a fair result for a week's worth of work. Not nothing to be ashamed of. It's fairly well put together. I think that it seems like he's tried to get away from this single view working method or workflow a little bit more based on what we commented on yesterday. Hopefully he can apply some of the other techniques or suggestions we gave as well. But yeah, wonderful work, and we're glad for his participation. I'll go ahead and stop that now. Let's see here. Anyone else that would like to share? I think we've covered most people. I do have one more participant. So if there's no one else that wants to share, I'll share this one last participant's work as well. And this one is is only doing the style transfer and is not focused on trying to create a 3D model with it. So we'll go through some of the style transfer work here. This is Yuran Louis. Let me see if you can see their name here in the top right. Yuran Louis. So we have some of these different style transfer solutions. it's funny, just commenting here on style transfer. Sometimes you just end up with this kind of blah that's not really well defined in any way. It's just kind of vague. And I think it's the computer basically saying, I don't really know what to do with that, you know? I mean, obviously it's playing heavily on this grayness here that we get from the first image, but then applied to the second image, it really isn't useful at all. I wonder if flipping the images, we would have gotten better results. I imagine we would have there. See here's a great example where we have this just kind of grayness, and the grayness applied to some interesting space doesn't really give us much, but then flipping it does give us some really nice geometry and results. That's actually a beautiful image, that one there. Quite nice, amazing.
What is wonderful that it's always surprising. Every time you get something that you say, okay, this, I didn't expect this, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing.
You know, Juan Carlos, let me engage you on that a little bit here. So I heard some feedback where people were saying that they didn't like the black box kind of aspect of this style transfer process, right? And I guess that goes away a little bit more when you have a little more control. In the example of DeepArt.io, it really is just like a one-to-one correspondence where you put in the imagery and then you get out a result, and there is kind of this black box aspect to it. With your style transfer work that you were doing with that specialized script, you had a little bit more control. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So with that, then that kind of black box aspect goes away a little more, I guess.
Maybe a bit.
I would say there is one more layer of black box.
Just
yeah, so sometimes higher number is better, but sometimes it doesn't. So it's just like one more thing you can play with. But yeah.
But still black box.
Yeah, so it's like 2 layers of surprise.
I see. Yeah. But the reason I bring it up,
the box is packaged, you know.
The reason I bring that up is because you said how wonderful it is that it's always surprising.
Yeah.
And can you? I don't know. Do you have any more thoughts about that?
I mean, you know, as more as I use it, as more as I mean, it's very human, right? I'm kind of trying to discover a logic, right? And say, okay, so you have more cases, and then you organize them and you say, okay, so perhaps this, perhaps that. However, there's sometimes this is working, and this is the fascinating part because you are like decoding the black box. But at one moment, there's just like a huge mistake, and I say, okay, I didn't understand. I need to start again to process that, right? So, I mean,
well, so then how, for you, Juan Carlos, how does that play into the design process? Because I think it's a very rich addition to the design process, but I'm just wondering about your perspective on that.
My perspective is that actually the part that I more love, I mean, both are interesting because when you control more the process, it's like, okay, it's like a designer that has more into control things, right? It's like an expert designer that has a good base to, and you know, design is about your discovering yourself in a way, right? So it's like a more mature designer that knows where it's going, the design. But that has big qualities, but also big limitations. Big qualities in terms that you will deliver something control and you will achieve a result for sure, maybe a good one. But you are losing that on control. I mean, it's a topic that I really love, Spencer.
Well, that's why I want. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's great. Because I think that having some elements that you can't control in a design process, and I don't mean like external parameters such as site or client or kind of environmental aspects. But if you kind of impose additional constraints upon yourself, and in this case, the lack of control over the output you're getting from the style transfer process, I think that you can get better results that way.
Yeah, it's a little bit like life, no? As you get older and you get more experience, you can better control things. You have, like, it's learning process. But at certain point, you need something crazy coming to your life, right? And this is what I like from the style transfer, because it's like, okay, because your tendency will be to make process easier and more perfect. And as more as you do, as better or more control it is. And you can achieve faster results with less effort. But then you become conventional and you become repetitive. And to have like these shocks, like something like, what? Sorry, what's this? I think is very, very good. It is like keeping you younger in your creativity. I don't know how to explain, but
yeah. The uncanny or the unconventional, the unexpected, the cerebral, these things. Mm-hmm.
Because I think practice and architecture, even the big names around, one is because of the obsession to have your own style and your own like stamp, like each great architect is doing. So in one hand, you want to make your own style recognizable to others, right? This is just because it's repetition and you are able to create a kind of language, right? And this is wonderful, but then that obsession will limitate your variability or your opportunity to explore things that are completely opposite from your direction. And that is great. But I think in this case, the styles transfer is a good example of that. Like in one hand, you can develop your own language, but in the other one is like something really shocking and really, very fresh coming to you. And this is I think this is one of the qualities of this tool that is the one that makes me very curious, because it's really like,
it does force you out of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah. But sorry, maybe we are spending too much time into this topic, but I think both things are necessary. So in one hand, you need to go for it. For example, if I look to this image we have in the center of our screen, right? This is what precisely exactly I expect from style transfer, right? This one in the center. So I have a colorful texturing, I have a structure, and the result, exactly, that one is like that space structure with that texture, without colors, and fine. This is what perfectly I expect from that, right? And so this is something that I can control, I can guide. I will select those images in order that I have a sort of preview and expectations that is 80 or 90% close to the result, because I have been learning from this tool. But if you look to other images, just the one on the top, I say like, okay, why we have that, right? I didn't expect it. It's just, sorry, a very simple example. But I say, wow, because that's a sort of deformation of that one, and just because they are inverse, right? So that for me is amazing. I say, wow, yeah. The image in the top left for me is 100% unexpected. And the one in the center to me is 97% expected. So very happy, because it's something that I'm discovering and it surprises me every time. And we have wonderful books about this topic from the 20th century, from artists, from architects, when they are kind of trying to understand that part of creativity, where it's coming from, right? And how much is control and how much is not control. And if you go through all these books and readings, you will see that this component is very important. And they are like sometimes very touched when they design something that in their mind is perfectly controlled. And when they go inside, they are so surprised because they will have that light, or they will have that space, or they will have that view that they didn't expect. And they all times are quite touched, and they are so emotional because they say, that is the beauty of creativity, because it's something that even you think that is perfectly controlled, even if everything is coming from your mind, even if that is your design, however, there will be something that will surprise you every time. And that is wonderful. That is the poetic of our job, I guess. And style transfer, I'm so interested because it's like just pop up this, you know, like it's just putting in front of you from the beginning. You don't need you don't need to expect that in a very developed process, but you have immediately as something, right? And this is, I think, one of the qualities.
Yeah, kind of speaking to that, the artist, whether they're an architect or an artist, and they have this composition they've created, and then they are reviewing the composition and they find the unexpected in their own work, it almost sparks a new creative process, right? Where it's like, this is then the beginning of a new cycle or something like that. And by using style transfer early in the design process, we kind of force that dialogue to happen earlier, where we don't wait for the final result to be able to have that aha moment of this unexpected result that we can respond to. Yeah, that's wonderful.
So this is, I think, one of the points that is for me really, really, really interesting, right? So if you read one of these books of this Spanish artist, his name is Oteiza, Jorge Oteiza. I don't know if you know him. He's author of these metaphysical boxes, very much into philosophy. And he's an architect, but then he decided to be an artist. So he practiced as an artist, but of course you can see that his background is completely architectural because of the understanding of the space, right? And he's wrote in one of his books, and he's describing this process, you know, when he's producing these sculptures. And he said, at the beginning, it's all about my control, right? Oh yeah, you can search for his work if you want.
Yeah.
And so I will write the name in the chat, if I can manage.
Please do, yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah. So there's this beautiful, beautiful part of one of his books, and he's saying, at the beginning, you know, I control in my hands. He's describing when he's producing a sculpture, right? And he's in a kind of control of the process. And he say, the moment that I understand that this is art is when my hands are moving by themselves. It's out of control. It's something that I cannot explain, but I give the input, I start the process, but then the process is dominating myself. And I feel this is something happening in architecture and in all creative process many times, right? So at the beginning, it's a lot of rational effort to do things, to be creative. But then in one moment, and that's what you understand, that you are there, that you are absolutely in that thing, and that will be successful, is when you don't think anymore. It's just like things are going, and now all are, for a strange reason, going in the perfect place, you know? And that's amazing. That is completely on control. What I found, again, just to go back to the topic, what I found interesting in this tool, because I will like to define it as a tool, as a design tool, is that part is anticipated, right? So it's quite interesting because you have it from the beginning, and you can even make decisions. So this is really, really, really stimulating in the design, into your creativity, because it's not that hard. when we start design, we are very, you know, like an elephant moving, you know, it's really, you struggle a lot. It is, you...
But anytime you start with a blank canvas, it's stifling.
Yeah. And you will start to put things together and they will look to you really, really bad. You will be very frustrated. You say, oh, I'm really not able to go further, because you want to explore, you want to push further your creativity. And it will take long process just when that magic that Oteiza is defining, right? Like, oh, that finally you feel like everything is just a flow. It's like music and just going, right? And you are there. And then the problem is exactly the opposite, and was what I was mentioning to the first student. Like, then you need to come back because you are just flying, you are lost in the process, you are in the imagination, you are just enjoying, right? And you even forget that you are designing, or you know, you have a submission, or you have something to deliver, right? So then is that in that process, and you need to come back. But the beginning to start that process is the hardest part, right? And that's why I found really, really wonderful this tool. Sorry.
This is a great conversation. I'm really glad that we've got this recorded. I'm glad that the students that are here are able to participate in this and be available for it. It's funny because this is not the main stage for the Inclusive Futures, but I really feel like this conversation has been quite rich, and so I'm happy that we've had this dialogue, and I'm grateful for Yurian Liu for kind of sparking the conversation for us with her work. So really nice results.
May I say something too?
Go ahead. Yes, please do.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I also look at it from another perspective, which is more in a theoretical discussion way, which is I heard that there are like two types of problem in the world. So one type is very scientific. For example, how tall is the building? Then we can get a yes or no question. And then another type is called rigged problem. I don't know if you heard of that, but it's basically talking about design problem. It's actually a rigged problem, which doesn't have a yes or no question. But because it is so complex, because every time you do a design action, the design inquiry itself will change. So actually it's always ongoing process. So with this type of problem, we don't have a yes or no question, but only a better or worse solution. So how we should face this complex problem is actually we have to use some complex solution. And then I consider the style transfer is one of the way that we can use it. Because, for example, if we use Grasshopper, it is quite a linear way trying to tackle a complex problem. But style transfer is trying to using a complex way to tackle a complex problem. This is how I look at this. Yeah, but it is
so it's like fighting fire with fire, basically.
Yes, or more. Or how to say? Yeah. Or elephant to an elephant. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just type the name of because I studied this guy in the last 2 years, which is an architectural theorist. He mentioned about the rigged problem is the nature of a design problem, that we cannot face it using scientific method. Yeah, so from this perspective, it's more about the theory part instead of the creativity part, but they come to the same conclusion, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm familiar with this. Yeah, this is good. Thank you for sharing that in the chat.
No problem.
Thanks a lot. Okay, are there other people that would like to share their work before we go? I think we've gone through everyone's work. If I'm mistaken, please correct me. Very fruitful conversation today. I've really had quite a time sharing with all of you and seeing the results you've produced. I'm hoping that what we've discussed and the work we've worked through this week is useful to you as a designer. And I hope that we can keep this community going. I think that what we have started in Discord is nice. And I'd love to keep in touch with all of you as you move forward in your careers and and see the ways that you're able to employ style transfer in the future. Obviously, Henrik, myself, and Juan Carlos are all very interested in this set of challenges and problems. And so seeing updates of how you're able to incorporate the style transfer will be quite inspiring and fun for us to kind of follow. It's not going anywhere, and neither are we. And I imagine we're all going to be incorporating it more in our work. And so seeing yours in the future will be a nice inspiration and a nice continuation of the dialogue. I think we have some nice, surprisingly, I think we have some nice results for the exhibition. Not surprising that your talent wasn't capable. I'm just surprised that we've had people follow through with the workshop through the whole week. So I'm really grateful for that. Thank you for following through. And I think we have some wonderful work to collect and to share in the exhibition. Based on what I'm seeing from today's output, I think what we'll probably end up going with is kind of a side-by-side comparison between the style transfer and the output seen. I think that's the most compelling results that we've seen so far. The animation, although interesting within a week's time, may be a little bit ambitious. And so I think that's what we'll share is the side-by-side comparisons. So if you haven't gotten a side-by-side comparison in yet, please do so as soon as possible, as Henrik and Shannon and I will be compiling those results directly after this meeting. If there's any last comments or feedback, I'd love to hear closing remarks from all of anyone who's interested to do so. And then from there, we'll close, I think.
Well, I want to thank you, Spencer, because you did an amazing thing organizing this workshop. So I have been really, very honored to be part of it. We have many things to share. We are discovering there's a lot of potential that is coming out every time we discuss about it. Every time I look to a style transfer result, I'm again like saying, wow, there's something happening here and it's so fascinating, so interesting. But in the same time, I want to just to highlight that this is part of design process. So our interest is to look at it not just as something that is a process and a result, but at least from my point of view, the interesting part is how this could be part of a design process. And this is very important to be reminded because that is what, at least personally, I'm looking toward this, So
fully agreed, yes.
To not look at it just as a result, but is part of, it's just a step in a further process that is, it is really opening new ways to view. And I like also this process because it's a lot into how you see to things and how you can interpret things and how you can take advantage or benefits from things. And this is very related to design, right? So I like it because it's something that is not giving you immediate results, but it's asking you to interpret it. And I think interpretation is one of the main parts of design processes, right? So it's how you then translate it. So I slowly we're like highlighting these keywords like process, interpretation, translation that are very important into any process. And in the same way, I like it because it's not that far for what is happening 100 or 200 or perhaps longer time ago with different tools, with different opportunities, with different sources. But all the big architects and the masters, they always were inspired by these kind of things. In that time were analogic, in that time were maybe to observe the nature or to see a sunset or whatever. But then how they translate it and then how they make it a process, that is the quality and the talent of the architect, or that is a part of creativity. Now we have different tools, we have much more opportunities but it's again about your will to get from that and your capacity then to translate and to produce something that is different. And I think this is very important, to not look at it as a final result, but look at it as a tool, as something that is in between. The fascinating part is this thing is making that contact point between two different things, right? That is inspiration, and then is what you are delivering, right? And we can go back to Louis Kahn, words like silence and inspiration or whatever, or Le Corbusier or whoever you want. It's again that mystery of that thing that is ourselves, right? And how these tools can help us to develop it and to discover and to create. Creativity is so fascinating. We are so lucky to be in this field. Sorry, thank you. Thank you to the students. Thank you to Spencer. Thank you to Henry from my side.
Okay, then if there's no further comments, then I think we'll close here. Thank you again, Juan Carlos, for those comments and for everyone's participation. So quite humbled to have been a part of this and to have seen all the wonderful work from the students and for the participation that we've had. So it's quite wonderful. Thank you so much. And until next time, see you. Make sure you look at the results at the digitalfutures.world exhibition from the workshops, because you'll find some of our work there, I believe.